Hello, Blackhawks Nation. Welcome to the Blackhawks Daily, your favorite recap of the daily buzz around your Chicago Blackhawks. I'm your host, PJ Benoit. Thanks so much for tuning in as we uplift, support, and celebrate our beloved Hawks as they're just trundling on through their centennial season. If you're new here, welcome. And if you haven't already, please take a moment, hit that subscribe button. It would be wonderful to have you along as we build this incredible community. You'll see them in the comments. But we got our 4 topics of today, so let's dive in, shall we? So, quite the weekend. How you guys doing? Are you doing all right mentally? Are you doing okay? I'm not, but that's a whole other thing. So let's talk a little bit about officiating in the NHL. Let's go back to the Seattle Kraken game and talk about that game in particular, and then we're going to zoom out a bit because it isn't just about one game. It's a growing issue across the league. I've been talking with several friends of mine who are very vested in the NHL as a whole, as well as, of course, the Hawks, and they're saying they haven't seen officiating this lax in a while, and it's a little bit shocking. So let's chat about that, shall we? So in the Hawks game against Seattle, we saw a sequence that literally flipped the result. I kind of touched on this last week, but let's really talk about it. With the score tied 2-2 late, Bedard was racing in on a breakaway and appeared to get slashed, hooked on his hands by Ryan Lindgren. And it wasn't even an appearance of such. It was clear, right? No penalty was called. Instead, Bedard reacted, got tagged for an unsportsmanlike conduct minor, and then Seattle scores the game-winning goal on that power play with just 2 seconds remaining on the man advantage. On top of that, earlier in the game, hold on, before I get into that, Blashill said that he hopes that whatever Bedard said to the ref warranted that call, right? Because I hope Bedard friggin' MF'd the guy's mom. I hope that he talked about whatever really irked that ref, because what we saw on the ice, yeah, he got up really close to him, but he was coming in with speed on the goal. I don't know. That call just seemed to be very frivolous and punitive for no real reason. So I hope that Bedard really made fun of him. Like really said something terribly, which, knowing Bedard, he probably didn't, but I don't know. That's what Blashill thinks, right? Let's hope it was worth it. Anyway, earlier in the game, there was a forecheck hit by the same player, Lindgren, against Burakovsky, his former teammate, that caught him without the puck, his head down, and there was no penalty. Blashill was visibly furious on this, saying that in back-to-back games, there was guys going right to the head, right? He's also mentioning, he's talking about Bertuzzi from the game before. So you've got a missed slash or a hook, you got a high hit with no call, and then a questionable call on Bedard's reaction that changes the score. It's enough to drive you nuts. And there's why this feels like a bigger league problem. It's not just one play or one game. There are articles pointing out about how inconsistent officiating is across the NHL. As one writer put it, the NHL has a referee problem. Too much inconsistency, too many games where the calls don't match what the spectators see. We all saw it, clear as day. But, and I get it. Game speed, things are hard, and I can never be a ref, right? It's really hard. First of all, I can't skate. But second of all, it would be very hard to process that much information that quickly, especially in a game as fast as hockey. But they're paid to do that. That's their jobs. So they should actually do the best jobs that they can. And just for whatever reason, it seems like this season, it's not as great, right? So even within this game, the Kraken and against the Kraken, the issue's tangible. Did the officials swallow the whistle? Did they enforce one side more than the other? When calls like that go against you and you lose by 1 goal, fans and players alike are going to question whether the officiating allowed the outcome rather than just didn't prevent it. So what does this mean for the Hawks, right? It affects momentum and morale. When you feel like a bad call changes from 2 points to 0, it shakes you. It pisses you off. The Hawks were in control for a lot of that night. And then the non-call plus a bad call absolutely tipped the scales. And then you're not focused on your play. You're focused on the officiating, which should never be, right? You also, it affects the trust in the system for a young team building identity. Feeling like the rules hold you accountable and protect you is important. When you see head hits uncalled or slashes ignored, that trust erodes. And then execution still matters across the board, right? I'm not absolving the Hawks. They still made mistakes. But when you lose a close one, and especially a hard fought one, it's harder to shake the feeling that the refs were part of the story. And that distracts you from what you need to fix on your end. So here's how I'm looking at it. The officiating in that game should not be an excuse for losing. The Hawks still have to play 60 minutes. They have to finish chances. They have to defend cleanly. But when you feel like the calls were against you in critical moments, that adds a layer of frustration and unfairness. And then the bigger issue, if the NHL wants credibility, it absolutely needs consistency. If certain penalties are going to be uncalled or certain reactions get harsh penalties, the league has to address it. As one writer put it from The Winning Habit, if feet aren't held to the fire, there's never going to be any change. So for all of our parts, let's keep watching the Hawks. Let's keep judging the team on the ice, because absolutely that deserves to be done. But we can't ignore how the environment, including officiating, plays a role in these tight outcomes. And just a reminder, this isn't so much a gripe, we need an excuse session. This is my attempt to shine a little bit of light on a concerningly growing issue that absolutely needs to be nipped in the bud, no matter what sweaters are out there on the ice. Accountability matters across all lines, and this reflects not only how people celebrate and trust their teams and the games that they play in, but also their trust in the NHL as a whole. So, whew, all right, I feel better. All right, I'm off my soapbox, right? So thank you for allowing me that little bit of tirade there. Moving on from there, so let's talk about the game against Buffalo. Do we have to? Yes, let's talk about it. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. We're just going to get it in the rearview mirror and move on. We had a disheartening outcome against Seattle, and then had to do one of the hardest things to do, which is have a home game and then an away game the very next night. That's the worst one. 2 nights in a row. If you're away and then you get to be at home, all right, it's not as bad. But this is really the worst case scenario, especially one where we feel like we should have won and it was taken from us, and then we walk into a place where you're expected to win, right? So we walk in there and we get absolutely blown out, just blown out, right? I'm not even going to break it all down. I'm going to refer to the old box score. So, because the numbers really don't tell the whole story, right? So if I just read this box score to you, I'm not going to say the goal. Well, all right. They had 9 goals to our 3. Okay. They had 30 shots to our 23. Okay. They had 14 shots to our 17. They had 19 hits to our 13. They won 35 faceoffs to our 24, so that's not great. Both of us were 1 of 2 on the power play, and both of us had 4 penalty minutes as a whole. So if you're reading that, outside of the goals, it seems like, pretty even game outside of they got 7 more shots or whatever else. We scored 1 goal per period. Not a bad run. They scored 3 goals per period. The only shout out that I can give, Vlasic had a goal. Awesome. Bertuzzi had 2 goals that night. Good for him. That's awesome. He's up to 12 goals on the year. Bedard had 2 assists. That's wonderful. Nazar had an assist. Renzel had 2 assists. Green had an assist. So those are all great things. But man, brutal game. I didn't watch it because I was at a friend's house, but I kept getting pings on my phone from the updates, and I kept thinking that maybe I was drinking too much because I couldn't believe what the score was telling me. So rough. So anyway, shake it off, learn from those kind of things, and then we go into last night's game. So last night's game, we have it back at home, trying to shake it off, and we just happen to be playing the very best team in the league. They had 1 loss in regulation all season so far. they're the real deal, right? The Avalanche. So we kind of walked into a buzzsaw, but not really a buzzsaw. Buffalo seemed like a buzzsaw. Last night was just a hard-fought game. It was a 1-0 loss. So, yeah, it's a loss, but it's one that actually I think we can kind of hold our hat on. I wish it was 2-1 where we at least scored on them, but, it's our first shutout of the year. Anyway, it's one of those games where the effort was there, but the results weren't, right? So let's talk about 3 standout performances. Yes, there were some studs despite the loss, and then 3 areas that we obviously need to work on. So the 3 studs of the game against the Avalanche. Spencer Knight. So, despite the loss, Knight made 25 saves. Not bad at all. The Hawks got chances. The game was winnable. Knight gave them that chance. So that's all you can ask for. He gave them that chance. The effort and structure in stretches. We saw the Hawks dominate the first period, outshooting Colorado 11-2 in the first. That's the kind of start that you want. So that's a great positive. The young core continuing to push, right? Players like Bedard and others kept going. They kept competing hard. The fact that the team is in this game and battling the top club is a positive in itself, right? So the 3 things to work on. We got to finish our chances. The Hawks had chances in terms of, we had a lead in terms of shots and chances, but we never converted, right? Against a team like Colorado, you got to take your opportunity. The goal came when Knight's breakout pass got picked off, allowing the Avalanche to rebound and score. That kind of mistake is costly. We just got to sustain momentum throughout all the periods. We've talked about this before, obviously. A strong first, the Hawks were outshot 19-1 in the second period. So that middle period slip, we've had many times, but we've persevered for the most part, but this one didn't help, is the reason why we lose tight games. So the bottom line, this loss stings because it was so close and the Hawks could have won it. We're in it, right? They showed up, the structure, the effort, the young players, all good signs. Beating the Avalanche, the elite teams, requires a full 60 minutes of sharp execution, minimal mistakes, and seizing 1 or 2 of those chances whenever they come through. So the takeaway is that the Hawks are nearly there, right? Tale of 2 cities. We have an embarrassing loss against one of the worst teams in the league. And then, we lose against the top team in the league, but we put up a good showing, right? 1-0. Losing by 1 goal is nothing to shake your head at. It is a valiant effort. So we are nearly there. The gap between this club and teams like Colorado is shrinking. The blueprint is being drawn, and now it's just about consistency, focus, and execution. And I'm looking forward. We don't have a couple of games until Wednesday, so I'm sorry, we don't have any games until Wednesday. So I'm looking forward to us regrouping and kicking some ass. That's what I like. So here's the box score from Avalanche. They scored 1 goal to our none. They had 26 shots to our 22. So we had so many shots in the first period, and then not many the rest of the game. So got to clear that up. Especially one shot in the second. Yeah, not good. They blocked 14 to our 12. They had 29 hits to our 21. We dominated on faceoffs, which is awesome. We had 33 to their 25. That's fantastic. Both teams were 0-fers on power plays. They were 0 for 3. We were 0 for 2. We had 6 penalty minutes. They had 4. It was a tight game. It was a tight game. But against the top team, at least we weren't embarrassed, right? At least we weren't embarrassed. So anyway, that's my takeaway from there. Let's move on to your guys' comments. Now, of course, these are some days old, so but I got to give shout-outs, right? So Todd, Denny, Bali, 2877, repeat offender. So he's talking about, I pointed out the officiating from the game before. He said, even more troublesome than the non-Colin Burakovsky cheap shot was the fact that no one came to his aid. WTF was that all about? The Hawks need a true enforcer in their roster. I'm tired of teams taking liberties with our young team. I'm also tired of the poor officiating we've gotten for years. Well, yes, very good. So anyway, actually, we talked about that. And also, he said that if he was talking about if Bedard and Canada doesn't show him the respect he deserves and leaves him off the Olympic roster, I would love to see him get U.S. citizenship and play for Team USA. Woohoo! Dare to dream. Have a great weekend, PJ. Thank you. I did have a fairly good weekend, except for the sports part. Well, except for the Bears, they won. Thank you, Todd. I really appreciate it. We got Stephen G. 6748, I believe, is a new contributor. Welcome to the club, sir. He said Hawks will come out flying tonight after that debacle last night. He's talking about going against the Avs versus no, I think he was talking about going against Buffalo. Well, I don't know exactly when you did this one. If you did it after the Seattle game, then yeah, it didn't quite happen. If you're talking about after the Buffalo game, well then yeah, we did come out flying and we came out dominating the first period, so that was great. Thank you for your contribution, sir. Joshua Bauman, 3209, repeat offender, sour grape refs, ruin sports. Refs need to be held accountable somehow. Have them answer to the media postgame and defend their calls. I don't know. The Hawks need to do better to not be in that situation in the first place. But man, that ref is a snowflake who needs to be relieved of his duties. Yeah. Talk about thin-skinned. Yeah, I agree with you, Joshua. Thank you so much for your always wonderful contributions. Lester 701, the Commander, he says, I hope that everyone has a great Friday. Sorry, he wrote this before the Buffalo game. Hope that everyone has a great Friday evening and weekend. Horrible officiating. The league needs to do something about how these young Hawks players are ignored, treated, etc. Fubar, yes, as he's contributed in the past, and he does below here. He's on to something. And then we also need an enforcer, dag nabbit. I don't blame Bedard for blowing his top. The boys will come back strong tonight. I wish we did, but unfortunately we didn't. Bedard, Crevier, and another defenseman will explode tonight. Well, unfortunately that didn't happen, but I love your enthusiasms. Commander. Thank you so much. Fubar Totality 3389, another wonderful repeat offender. I'm getting close to not caring about hockey anymore. It's like pro wrestling. It feels like bad marketing to suppress so blatantly a young, exciting team from a major market. But hey, what do I know? I get it, man. I get it. I get the cynicism because I feel that a lot as well. But don't give up. Don't give up, Fubar. Stay in there with us, buddy. The Hawks are going to rebound. They are. We got too much good stuff going on. Truly, if you really think about it, we got too much good stuff going on. So keep your head up, man. We'll get through this together. Thank you so much, Fubar, for your wonderful, as always, contributions. Ryan Austin, 1970, another repeat offender. Tonight's game was an absolute embarrassment. First real kick in the junk all year. Let's regroup and focus on the Avs. And we did, right? So first of all, thank you for your contribution. Second of all, we did do that. It was we got kicked in the gonads pretty bad. Absolutely right. Your comments are spot on, sir. So thank you so much for your contribution. Whew. I was dreading doing this one because I just felt so bad about that Buffalo game. And the Kraken and then the Avalanche. Anyway, on to bigger and better things, my friends. That's a wrap for today, Blackhawks Nation. If you're new here, welcome to the channel. Please like and subscribe. If you are subscribed, thank you so much for your support and for sharing about the channel with all your family, friends, and neighbors. Get them all in here. The more the merrier. After a weekend like this, we kind of need group therapy. So please, get them all in here. If you made a comment, thank you for sharing your thoughts and your expertise and your passion about the Hawks with us all. And if you're a repeat offender in the comment section, thank you so much for your contributions. It's absolutely an honor. It makes my everyday building this community with you. I just love it. Thanks to all of you as we celebrate the very best team in hockey with the very, very best fans in all of sports in the absolute very best city this world has to offer. That does it for now. I'm PJ, and we'll see you next time on the Blackhawks Daily.